Hi everyone. As you all know, today we're going to start an English lesson. This English lesson has several competencies, and we are going to start reviewing them in the following format. So our achievement indicators for the day are to recognize and understand the courage and heroism of Danish and Swedish people and all of those who resisted the Nazis. Remember that the novel, Number the Stars, is based during this time of the Nazi survival. We all want to be able to realize that each of us has the capacity to do good as well as evil. You want to be able to understand and analyze the reasons and motivations that cause certain people to take a stand, whether it's on the evil side, which we are automatically understanding as the Nazis, or the good side, which were all of those who were opposed to this movement. It's also important that you recognize your ability to work for justice and make a difference in your own capacity on society and on culture. Those are some of the themes within the novel Number the Stars. So based on that, as you can see, some of the topics are obviously the Holocaust, the friendship and hardships of the relationships during the Holocaust, literary elements, which we have seen before and are part of our prior knowledge, and questions, important questions, big ideas that you would ask yourself. What would you do or what would you risk to save your friends and your neighbors versus just yourself? And then also within these situations, how important is trust? Prior knowledge for this lesson are the sequence of events that led to the Holocaust. A little bit of geography and Germany's occupation of other European nations during World War II, including Denmark, Belgium, Norway, and the Netherlands. And of course, the fate of many Jews and also other beliefs under the Nazi regime. So today, we've gone through our achievement indicators, and now we're going to talk about how we're going to achieve this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a quick motivating introduction. I know that you guys love puzzles. So in order to start that, we are going to start working on a what I call a crisscross. This is a Number the Stars crisscross. And today we're going to work on it on your tablet. So using your tablet, we have used this dynamic before. You're going to use the short prompts for those that are across and the short prompts that are those for down. Now to make this easier, I've included a word bank, and we're going to do this in pairs so that you guys can support each other, okay? Then we are going to do, we're going to go and we're going to revisit some of the predictions that we made. We're going to go back to the poster pads that we made in class and the predictions that we've made based on just the title of the book. Now that we've finished reading the novel, it's important that we kind of revisit some of those prompts and some of those predictions that we made at the beginning of the reading several weeks ago. Which ones of those coincide with the theme of the book and the sequence of events that occur during the book, the plot? Which ones have had nothing to do with them? Okay, part of this analysis was looking at the book, look at the cover, just kind of reading the prompt on the back and making a prediction about what could happen in this story. So we're going to kind of review that poster pad and see, did your inferences coincide with the development of the story? And what evidence from the reading that you gathered support your prediction? So it's always fun and a little bit of competitive side to see whether our predictions were accurate or not. Okay? So after that, we are going to move along, and this is a multiple session plan. So this isn't going to happen all today. We're going to move across the board as we progress. And once again, there's going to be some individual work and some group work. Okay? So after we finished our crisscross and we visited our poster pad, then we're going to move on to a document analysis. This document is, here we go. I'm going to find it for you. This documentary is about the German occupation between 1940 and 1945. Now, this is a short documentary. It's issued by the Denmark National Museum, okay? And it's just got kind of basic facts because most of the inferences that you made from the reading came from the novel. I wanted you to understand what it felt like to be within this German occupation and just kind of the old day-to-day decisions that kids, neighbors, adults had to make in order to survive or risk their lives for a friend. So in this document, we are going to do a document analysis, and I will go through my expectations in a little bit. So we're going to go read through this. This is going to be individual work, and you are going to highlight some of the main ideas between each subtopic, evidence that either supported your prediction at the beginning. We've worked on note-taking skills, and some of the annotations that we make in a document like this. So since you can either look at it on your tablet or have some printed copies, and we're going to go through it, and you're going to kind of just highlight some ideas. We're going to read through it together, and then you're going to read through it again individually and highlight some of that information. After that, we are going to move on to a video documentary covering Denmark during 1943 and 1944. This is important that as you watch it, that you do some note-taking skills. Now, it's a 10-minute video, and obviously this is a secondary source. We will go through secondary sources in a minute, and we're going to just kind of take some notes that will support the writing prompt that we're going to go through in a little bit. Okay? All right. After that, you have a scheduled interview with Mr. B. Mr. B is your history teacher. And we're going to role play some of the interviewer, the prompter, the secretary that will be occurring during that interview, okay? So not only there are we going to be creating the interview with Mr. B, which would also be a secondary source because obviously Mr. B did not live through this World War, but he has a lot of knowledge on the topic, and he can kind of share some viewpoints on it. Mind you that some of this may be biased because he is also is a secondary source, and some of the important things that you need to ask him in that would be the causes of World War II, war in Europe, war in the Pacific, the flight of Jews during the war, some of the bombings of Hiroshima. But as we go through the video and the document, there will be some questions that arise based on our overall expectation at the end of this activity. Okay? And finally, what you guys are going to produce from all of this work is an 8-sentence paragraph to answer one of the following prompts. You're going to have a couple of options. Okay? So, prompt number 1 would be, why do you think it's important that Lois Lowry write a book about such a mature subject, such a serious, violent subject for younger children? So you guys are all 6th graders, and we usually save this kind of content for an adult audience, but it's also written in a perspective that you can kind of comprehend. So why do you think it's important that the author wrote this for an audience like you? Then the other prompt would be, if your best friend were in terrible danger and you weren't, what would you do? Would you stand by your friend and experience the threat together? Or would you kind of ditch the friend and save your own skin? This is kind of a little more about self-reflection, okay? And your third prompt would be, write about heroism. Choose a character and write how he or she demonstrates heroism. Use specific examples from the text to support your answers and essay. Obviously, using your strategies during the document analysis, during watching the video and doing the interview will help you gather this evidence and support in order to create the writing. Okay? So, what are my expectations during these sessions? Mostly it's your use of strategies. Amongst them, we're talking about note-taking during both the documentary and the document analysis, making predictions. Obviously, during the interview, this is collaborative work. And since this is English composition, your notes on that interview will be considered as part of the assessment in this activity. Remember that as ESL learners, your use of English within the classroom, during group discussions, during the interview, are also critical towards your learning process. The highlighting strategy, being able to identify or use of colors or note-taking about the main idea and the supporting details. Big one are pre-writing strategies. Once we come to the actual composition to answer the prompts. Kind of structure your 8-sentence paragraph. Remember your main idea and your supporting evidence. The revisions of that writing activity, and obviously your collaborative learning throughout the classroom. So these are things that I will be evaluating throughout the session in order to accomplish these achievement indicators. Now, one of the important things during this activity is that our focus and the use of sources are going to be secondary sources. I want to remind you that secondary sources are those that were produced after the event occurred, and all three of these, which will be the document, the documentary, and the interview, will occur post-event. Obviously, none of these were produced during the Holocaust. And we want to make sure that we check on reliability. So, some of the things that we are going to review when we are looking at a document is a couple of things like authenticity. So, this is a document created by the National Museum of the Netherlands. So it does have some reliability, authenticity, credibility. Then we're also going to talk about, obviously, this documentary is restored. It's about the tragedy in Denmark. Obviously, this could have some bias, so we have to be careful. But there is evidence in this documentary that can be supported by many facts and many primary sources that we can find that will serve as support for some of the claims in this documentary. Also, in the interview, like we've said before, keep in mind that Mr. B is a history teacher, and although he will state the facts, he will most likely include some opinions in there. Okay, so he is a secondary source. Definitely was not in World War II. Let's keep that in mind. Okay, so in order to begin, we are going to start working on our crossword. If anybody has any questions, keep in mind your source analysis. What was created? When was it created? Where was it created? Why was it created? And how? Okay. So all right, let's get started.